can see 4 of them. One of the youngsters, 2 lionesses, the young male. Possibly going to have to get past them and turn around and sit behind them. I think if they are... there's another lioness. I'm seeing number 5 now. And another one. As I look through the grasses, I can see a nose here and an ear twitch. Beautiful big lioness, this one. You can see the massive shoulders of hers. Pull down many a large mammal. She suddenly got interested. I heard an impala shout behind me, and I didn't quite hear it properly over the radio, whether it was just a rutting noise or an alarm call. But she perked up at the sound, and I think because of those impala behind us, I need to get out of the way of these cats and just sort of get to the side of them. Maybe we can see what they're all about. Apologies for lack of sound earlier. My name is Mark. Welcome to Djuma Game Reserve. Welcome to our wild part of Africa on Wild Earth. This is Djuma Game Reserve, part of the Greater Kruger National Park. And I have Brian on camera with me this morning. Scott and VM are in the other vehicle. We've been tracking these lions since we were listening to them back at camp. I want to thank Lynn for sending a message to say that there were sounds of lion calling just before 6. And again, probably just after 6:15 as well. That was probably when we were out already. And it didn't sound very far. In fact, in a straight line from camp, we're only a couple of 100 yards, maybe 300 yards. And I went on a bit of a tracking exercise with Scott. He went one direction, I went another direction. He found their tracks on Philemon's cut line. They had got up from where they were yesterday and had headed south, and then they turned west and then northwest, and they ended up on Zoe's Road. I did a bit of a loop to the west to see if they might have crossed our western boundary. Luckily they hadn't. And picking up their tracks again, coming down Rebecca's Road from Zoe's Road. Here they are. Now there's a bachelor herd of impala not very far behind us. And when we came past them, they seemed oblivious to the fact that these cats are here. Even though they've come down this road, I think those impala might have been off the road, away from the road. The cats will walk on the road because it is soft, it's quiet, and it just facilitates getting from A to B in a much easier manner. A lot of animals use roads, a lot of animals make their own pathways. Just looking at, you can see this, the color on my face, the color around me. The sun is just peeping through, a little bit of cloud. Gorgeous sunrise we're getting. And even better that we were able to see it with a bunch of cats. Some of them are starting to lie down, losing interest in the impala. Cloud is moving at quite a rapid rate.
Morning, mobile station.
Morning, Texan.
Yeah, Marcus, how are you?
Very good, and you? I've got the Nkuhumas on Rebecca's Road.
So what you got there?
Ngala, Nkuhumas.
Okay, good, thanks. Just only one more then?
Yeah, affirmative.
Okay, good, thanks. I'll come and join you.
forward a little bit. They're either seeing something or hearing something west of us. See more of them now too. This young male sat up and has now looked over. I don't see anything. I don't know if it is the impala. Maybe they're seeing something bigger, biding their time. It seems like the whole pride is spread out, and they're some of them looking in different directions.
Don't move the car.
Pardon?
Don't move the car.
Hello. Came creeping up behind us, big lady. And it looks like they might even settle here for the day. Possible with this cloud they might move again, but it looks like they, especially when the big females lie down and appear to be settling in. They're the ones that make the decisions. The youngsters might get edgy and might want to move, but they will always take the lead of the oldest females in the group. And here a black-headed oriole. With this liquid call just behind us. I'm going to try and reposition ourselves and try and establish where all of these cats are and try and see if we can maybe be a witness to some lion activity before it warms up too much and before they do go to sleep. And in the interim, we're going to be going over to Scott and Wiem to see what they have or to see where they are on another side of Djuma, and I'll see you all in a short while.
Good morning everyone, and welcome on board with Wiem and myself. We are searching for any signs of tracks of animals that may have moved around last night. We're specifically hoping to see, just going to move into this little gap here, Wiem. We're specifically hoping to find some tracks of two young male leopards, two brothers, that have been hanging out to the south of us. And we haven't had many leopard sightings in the last week, so that's what we're hoping to do. But a huge well done to Mark for finding the Nkuhuma pride And it is interesting how little they have moved over the last 48 hours. They've moved a very, very short distance, so who knows what it could be that's keeping them here. Whatever it is, it's great for us. Not so great for this buffalo that we're looking at, though. They'd prefer to have less lying around than more. Oh, look at that. That was awesome. You may have seen it gobbling up a very fat tick, that little bird called an oxpecker. And here we go. There it is in its mouth. Oh, the youngster without a red beak that's left in your shot now was trying to beg and plead for that tasty morsel, and that's what they continue to do now by shaking their wings very quickly. It looks like the adult did give one of its chicks. The tick did it. Hard to tell. Well, beautiful, and the adult is the one with the bright red beak and the yellow eye. Its chick, excuse me, is the one that is yet to reach adult plumage and has a grey beak and a grey eye. And it's common for adult birds to feed their youngsters. And it looks like there's some more feeding going on here, so let's watch closely. It looks like they are all having a successful morning foraging for the blood-sucking parasites that they pluck off the buffalo. And this buffalo seems to be blind in its right eye. I've just noticed that as VM zoomed out. That very white coloration is a fairly sure sign to me that it has very limited or no vision in its right eye. I'm sure its left eye is okay. With one eye, you've got a good chance of surviving, being a buffalo, but if he was blind in both, I'm not sure he would hang around too long. Here are the oxpeckers searching high and low for the parasites. The parasites tend to try and latch on to the softer parts of skin in the warmer areas, so where the legs meet the stomach and under the armpits, in the ears, and that's why you can see them searching in all those specific areas. And a very similar bird to a woodpecker in terms of its foot structure. Most birds have got 3 toes facing forward and 1 facing back, but woodpeckers and oxpeckers have got 2 forward, 2 back, and that suits their lifestyle perfectly, because they are required to clamber up and down vertical objects and often hang upside down, and their foot structure suits that perfectly. While we're on the topic of birds, there are some parrots that you can hear screeching behind us, and I'm hoping we'll be able to get you a visual of them. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave the oxpeckers and their breakfast buffalo buffet. Well, it's not really a buffalo buffet, it's just a buffet that they have found on the buffalo. As VM's showing you, it's overcast today, which is good for us. It's going to be nice cool weather, and hopefully the animals will keep playing around and keep active for us. But while VM and I continue on our search, we shall probably cut back to Mark and see if those lions are showing any more signs of life, and we'll keep you updated on our movements, and I will tell you about my new friend over here when we see you next time.
Welcome back, everyone. And what they've been watching are a bachelor herd of impala. I guess there could be others too, but I saw a small bachelor herd just to the west of us. And it's times like now, when the impala are in the rutting season, that they can be so distracted that they're not really as alert as they would be outside of the rut. They get so involved in fighting and chasing each other that it becomes a little bit easier for predators, especially leopard. I don't know if lion would waste their energy. I mean, we've got 8 lion here. For them to have to share an impala would just be a snack more than anything else. Like the equivalent of having a croissant in the morning. But having said that, I've seen large prides take impala. I'm going to also move. I'm going to take some lovely little interaction there with this little boy, possibly his mother. Got a tweet from Bear in, sounds like Ontario in Canada. Could be. Wanting to know why the male seems to have such a blotchy mane. Bye, have a lovely day. And, well, Bear, you know, it's kind of like us humans, us males, when we go through puberty, or rather after puberty in our teens, or when we start getting beard growth. At first it's very patchy because we're still young. That's what it is for this little boy. He's not fully grown yet. He's probably still only about 3.5 in his 4th year. So it's still going to be a good 18 months before that mane starts becoming a little bit more full and a little bit more of a neater mane. And then, of course, as he grows older, by the time he's 8 years old, he's going to have, hopefully, quite a magnificent mane. But it's blotchy because it's not that he's lost any hair, it's just because he's a youngster and his hormones are just starting to, or his genes starting to come out. A lot leaner than they were yesterday. I suppose they've been walking around, they've been digesting a lot of that hippo. I believe they finished a hippo. Was it yesterday or the day before yesterday morning?
Day before yesterday, they finished it.
6, 7. So they, about 2 days after finishing a young hippo, still digesting, no doubt. I can see that one up there still got a fairly round tummy, unless she's got a round tummy for another reason. Where is... Other reason being that pregnant, but I doubt it. I think they still just got hippo in their tummies. Yeah, another tweet in from Virginia. Tweets are hashtag Safari Live, by the way. Virginia was asking if this male, if there are no males, will this male grow up to take over the pride and kick out any other males? Not likely, Virginia. This particular pride fall within the territory of the Matimbas. So the Matimbas are, I guess you could say, part of this pride, but now there are other prides within the Matimbas range, so you could say it's one extended pride, different splinter groups of a pride, or just separate prides. But he would be ousted by the males. If there were no adult males here, there might be a problem because I suppose he could end up mating with his mother or his aunt or his sisters. But generally speaking, the big males that there are will be the ones that will oust him more than anything else. He not likely to get to the... Oh, something's just got through into an impala. Just came running by. Couple of impala rams just on my right-hand side. They're watching them. And the rams, of course, are busy with the rut. One ram not even looking at us. The other ram started looking at us, and I thought maybe if it looked at us, he would see the cats. But he's now chasing. Unfortunately, not going to be able to see them. And they've run past. But it's exactly what I was trying to explain to you earlier, in that they get so involved in this hierarchy that they have to maintain and taking over females that they don't even regard predators or even think of them.
Yeah, thanks so much.
So now we get to see all of them. Now that they all sat up and took interest, I can see where they all are. One of the lionesses coming behind us. She's stopped now behind the spike thorn.
Is mine open? Yeah, I'm wondering
And beautiful light with the sun just poking its head through the cloud briefly. Yeah, that got a little bit exciting.
That the guy is the problem. I'm not sure if it's from the heat or something where the story about him or showed off the guy. Yeah, right. I think they got him on shoulder up in south. Vessel, I think. No, that's not a vessel, but it looks like a little guy watching over there. Good.
So it seems a couple of the other females are now taking a little bit more of an interest to where these impala came from, and could well be that there is the herd. The reason why we've had one ram chasing another ram is probably because his herd of females is behind us somewhere, and this other ram was trying to come in and poach a female. So he's probably chased her off, and with the rams out chasing each other. These lionesses, I think, are going to start making their way up towards the impala. So I need to extract myself, follow them, try and keep an eye on them. The lioness is taking the lead. The youngsters are watching them. Third lioness coming up behind them. Let's see what's going to happen. Just stop here and watch. And since she's laid down, the others have laid down too, next to me and behind us. Not that they've lost interest, more a case of the opportunity isn't quite there yet. I think they're very well aware of this group of impala that are up there. I think that possibly now that the chasing is done, the impala aren't as involved with each other as they were earlier, and there's possibly more vigilance going on with the impala herd. I think I heard an alarm call, but I can hear the rams rutting noises as well, and I think these cats are probably going to take advantage of that at some point this morning if they're able to. So tension has eased a little bit. At any moment, at any time of the day, we can go from sleeping lion to stalking lion, and it's one of the reasons why we tend to spend some time with them, even if they do appear to be asleep or resting. It's usually at times like that animals are likely to walk fairly close to them without seeing them, and that's when things can get a little bit exciting. I'm not wishing the death of any animal, but this is nature, this is how things work. And while, we might get some noise. One of them starting to vocalize behind us. Is it the boy?
Yeah.
See if we can get to see him, if he is going to. Come on, Jigger, use your gravity drive. Hello, Mrs. Lion, coming straight towards us. Morning, Maggie. Maggie tweeted a question wanting to know if the other vehicle would frighten off the Impala. No, Maggie. I think as you've seen, or if you spend some time with us on the drives, you'll notice that when we're driving around, the Impala tend not to take notice of us too much. I think sometimes, if under the circumstances, sitting with the lion, if Impala were to come running by, similar to what happened earlier, and they saw us here, there's a chance that they might stop and look in our direction, and then by looking in our direction they might see the lion, whereas maybe if the vehicles were not here, and that would be irrespective of which vehicle it is or whose vehicle it is, the fact that there is a vehicle might just draw their attention, and then they might see a black ear flicking or the tip of a tail, and that would give it away. But certainly not frighten them off, unless the vehicle drove straight towards them, and that just doesn't happen. These Djuma vehicles are very conscientious about not interfering as best we can.
Yeah, good. Which side do you going to check? I'm on the Super Catania. I'm going to cross Torchwood, check first walk, second walk area.
Morning, Misha, in Washington, wanting to know if there's a hierarchy amongst the females, and when hunting, who goes first, second, third, etc., and who doesn't go hunting at all. Yes, there is a hierarchy, Misha. There is a definite alpha female amongst a group who is normally the oldest of the females. Hunting, it's normally that alpha female. It's normally the oldest females that do have, they each have a function within the hunt, either being a decoy. It's normally the alpha female that will be the one that will be bringing down the animal. Normally, because it doesn't always happen that way. They can't always predict which way the animals are going to run, even though they might set up the hunt in a way that it should end somewhat predictably. I know in the past I've been able to look at how cats are setting up their hunt. Aha, there's something happening. The impala running around, and I can hear the ram chasing another one. Now, if they come running through here, these cats are already set up almost in a position to surround an impala if it does come, attack it from different angles. Let's see if I can get a better position for you here. You can see how an opportunity appears to present itself. They hear the impala rutting, and they hear the running, and they hear the commotion, and they almost get ready. But then when they realize that it's not coming their way, there's no point in them heading over there, because they're likely to be seen if they were to approach too close. And with the impala running around and rutting, I guess they're keeping their distance. I don't think that they would actively go for impala other than at a time when there's likely to be this accidental bumping into them during the rutting. At night it's a different story. They're able to hunt impala at night with ease, but now during the day impala are quite vigilant, and if they were to be trying to actively stalk the impala, well, they'd give it away and invariably lose out. And then just to finalise, it's the youngsters normally, anyone, mostly under about 18 months, they're the ones that stay behind. They tend to mess up the hunts too much. They're not as patient as the adults. They tend to jump the gun a little bit, and they don't know how to conceal themselves properly. Morning, Virginia. Virginia is asking why the lion would roar. Wouldn't it have an impact on their ability to hunt? Wouldn't it, especially with these impala here, would it not give themselves away? Yes, I think it would. I think it's possibly why he was about to start roaring, and then it could have been one of the ladies shut him up, or maybe he just stopped, but he started. The other thing is that the impala are fairly far. They're well over 100 meters, 100 yards away, and I don't think the impala could pinpoint their position that well, but yes, I think it would give them away. I don't think this is where they were roaring from this morning. But once again, with the impala in the rut the way they are possibly going to ignore things like that, or it's going to be missed. Interesting, Scott has something, so I think we're going to cross over to Scott, and I'll see you in a little while, a little bit later on in the morning. I'm going to stick around with these cats and see what they're going to be up to.
Welcome back, everyone, and happy to hear there's some impala around those sleepy lions, and it sounds like there have been some exciting moments there with Mark and the Nkuhuma Pride. Viam and I are enjoying this beautiful morning, and we've stumbled across a bird of prey which you can see silhouetted in the middle of this dead knobthorn acacia. I always find silhouettes of the birds of prey sitting in dead trees quite pretty, and especially when your subject has positioned itself as it has. It's also got a very distinctive crest, which will help in distinguishing which bird this is. And as VM works his magic on the camera, you'll begin to see a better idea of the coloration of this animal. Now, because this is quite a interesting bird in terms of IDing, I'm going to open this one up to the floor, and we'd really like to hear your ideas as to which bird of prey you think this is. Like I said, the crest is quite a prominent feature that not many of the birds of prey have here. I'll give you another clue, that this bird is usually an intra-African migrant, which means it migrates within Africa. However, occasionally we do get some that stay here for the winter and don't move further north. And I'm guessing that this is one of those individuals that's decided to stay for the winter, which is not uncommon, but the majority of these birds of prey will move off to warmer climates in Central Africa. And to send your answers through, the easiest way would be to hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or to send an email through to questions@wildearth.tv. And for those of you who are joining for the first time, a very, very warm welcome. And it's important to understand that it's an interactive safari, and it's also live. Those two factors go hand in hand, and we can answer questions about things that we are seeing. So do try to send through questions about any of the animals we may be showing you, if there's anything you'd like to know about them. And I'm going to take this opportunity, now that we are stationary, to show you my new friend. Now, as VM zooms in, I'm sure a lot of you will be able to work out what this animal was when it was still alive, just judging from the shape. And I'm going to turn it around very slowly, so you've got an idea of what it looks like. You can see inside the shell there. And as I turn it, you'll notice there's small little leg holes where my fingers are underneath here. This was a leopard tortoise, and you'll notice there's just a few little keratin pieces that form the external part of their shell. And what's nice about seeing this is you can relate this setup to the horns of antelope that we get in this area. The horns of antelope have also got a bony inner, just like we can see here, but the external parts of their horn is covered by keratin material. Obviously it's slightly different in that this is a shell and not a horn, and antelope's keratin sheath are thicker than this, is almost paper thin, this keratin sheath. What's nice to see though is you can see the individual plates. These plates are called scutes, spelled S-C-H-U-T-E-S, and the upper part of the shell is called the carapace, which we can see here. The underside of the shell is called the plastron. Now, as I tilt the plastron to the side, you will notice that it's very, very flat. Okay. Now, this helps us to understand whether this was a male or a female tortoise. And what the difference is, and the difference you need to look for, is that a female will have this very, very flat plastron, and the reason for that is that she's got no real reason to climb onto anything at any given stage. Males, however, have a requirement, and they do need to climb onto something, and what they would need to climb onto is one of these females. And as the male needs to climb onto the female in order to mate, if his plastron, his undercarriage, was flat, he would keep sliding off when they were trying to mate. So the male's shell is curved, so that when he does jump onto her back, he fits on snugly and doesn't keep sliding off. So the males will have a concave plastron. It's got a very big and prominent dent in it, whereas the females have got, as you can see, a very, very flat undercarriage or plastron. This is a leopard tortoise, and we can tell that by its shape. The other tortoises we get in this area are about half as thick, so they're certainly not as bulky and are flatter, and they lack the beautiful markings that give the leopard tortoise its names. We can only see a few of these markings here on the shell, but you can see it's quite leopard-like in coloration, hence their name. Hard to say why this tortoise would have died. It hasn't got any evident crush marks. It may have simply died of old age. Tortoises in this area, or leopard tortoises in this area, don't get very, very large. In other parts of South Africa, they get 2 or 3 times the size. But this is about the regular size for a tortoise. It could have been caught in a bushfire. That is another thing that kills tortoises quite often out here, but fire is natural, and without fire there would be so much dead undergrowth in this area that new plants and new life wouldn't be able to grow. Sadly, some tortoises get caught up in the crossfire when there are fires, but their death and the death of any animal out here will provide a source of food and life for other animals. So as sad as it is to lose animals, it's a necessity in order to have food and opportunities for the other smaller animals to survive, and it all forms part of the nutrient cycle, which is critical for recycling nutrients through the system and through the different trophic levels. Good. So we are continuing to search for any sign of leopards, but that's not to say we're not interested in other animals we may find along the way. To Joanne and a lot of other people who also got Wahlberg's eagle correct. So you know who you are. Joanne was one of the first to send through that answer, so well done, Joanne. Other answers were the Martial eagle and the crowned eagle, both very good guesses. The crowned eagle, if we had have seen, I probably would have been dancing on the hood of the vehicle because it's one of my favorite birds of prey, and they are very seldomly seen here. So simply the habitat that we found ourselves in here would not completely write off the chance of seeing a crowned eagle, but it would mean that it would be an uncommon sighting. Crowned eagles are specially designed to live in thick forests and hunt in thick forests, which we don't have here. This is broadleafed woodland. We wouldn't call it a forest or a jungle, and that's where the crowned eagles typically like to live. And they've got very broad wings and deep wings that allow them to fly from the ground vertically straight up to the canopy and or down. They have got incredible power, and again short wings which allow them to maneuver through the thick forests. I've only seen one in about 4.5 years here, and I think it was on its way from one forested area to another. Martial eagle, also very good. Martial eagle, also, sorry, the crown on a crowned eagle would be bigger. It can be difficult with birds that do have crowns, because depending on the wind and depending on whether they're displaying their crown, can alter the size of the crown. So let me actually just get a picture out in the book, and we will show you the differences. Okay, so on the bottom left we have the crowned eagle. It was a difficult one because we couldn't see the bird's breast and markings on its chest. We could only see the back part of it. But this is the crowned eagle, and this is the martial eagle, which also has a distinctive little crest. However, martial eagles are huge. It would have been twice the size of that Wahlberg's eagle. They've got a 2.5 meter wingspan to give you an idea of their size. But they do look similar, so to all of you who did put those in, well done. And it's difficult for you who can't actually get an idea of the exact size of the animal. So both crowned eagle and martial eagle were good guesses. Martial eagle being better because we do see martial eagles here. Again, not very common, but they are here. Then the Wahlberg's eagle, which was the culprit, is over here. And interestingly enough, unlike the crowned eagle and the martial eagle, you get different color variations. You get the pale morph, but you also get a dark morph. And there are certain birds of prey that do have this. You can get some birds that will have occasionally grey markings, and in certain scenarios it'll be completely pitch black, which makes IDing them interesting and sometimes tricky. But well done to all of you, and thanks for submitting your answers. If you didn't get it right, that's not a problem, because now at least you know the differences and the slight fact that may alter to being here to another. We are about to turn onto our southern boundary. We've been lurking in the southern part of the Djuma property in the hope that two young male leopards who we had word of sharing a kill, their names are Quarantine and Nkuhuma, they're the sons of Karula, they're about 2.5 years old now, and because they're brothers, they have got a unique relationship in terms of how a leopard would normally act, and I'm not sure which one of them managed to make the kill, but they've both been sharing it. There have been a few squabbles along the way from what I've heard, and interestingly enough, the report that we got was that Quarantine actually chased Nkuhuma off the kill. That could have been once, and then Nkuhuma half an hour later could have come and chased Quarantine off, but that's the information we've got. The fact that there are two, even though they're young male leopards, they're big, the fact that there are two of them together makes me confident that they would have finished off whatever they've been feeding on, and now will hopefully head north back towards the home range where they grew up, and that means they need to move from right to left. There's another vehicle, obviously with the same plan as me, coming towards us. Just got a great question through from Teresa in Surrey, Canada, and Teresa has pointed out that she knows of a harpy eagle which looks very similar to our crowned eagle, and she would like to know if we get any harpy eagles here, but we actually don't, and it is a very, very similar looking bird though to the crowned eagle, and actually lives in a very similar habitat, Teresa. You could almost call them cousins that live on different continents. I would love to see a harpy eagle. They are really, really hardcore predators that can catch, just like the crowned eagle, big prey like monkeys and small antelope. But I guess it's the American equivalent of the crowned eagle. I think it's even bigger than a crowned eagle. It's a massive bird, the harpy eagle, and one certainly worth looking out for if you are touring around an area where they may occur. Well, folks, let's go and maybe see what's going on with those lions. Hopefully a few more signs of life, but there's only one way to find out. Over to Mark, and we will catch up with you a little bit later.
Well, they've regrouped, and as you can see, one's belly up, the others are mostly flat, and we've had one or two incidents of the impala rutting in the distance, the noise that they make when a ram is chasing another ram away from his females, and they sit up and they sort of look in that direction, but they haven't been as interested as they were earlier on. And I think as the day wears on, they're probably going to be losing more and more interest, and it's going to be more important to sleep. Cloud hasn't seemed to be opening up very much, so temperature is still pretty cool, hasn't really risen much. and that will allow these cats to be a little bit more active than if it was another hot day like yesterday. Morning, Renee. Renee was asking if they've eaten since finishing the baby hippo 2 days ago. Not to my knowledge, Renee. I don't think anybody has mentioned anything about having a kill anywhere since the hippo. But of course, if they had something like an impala or a nyala or a kudu, even a kudu with 8 lion wouldn't last very long. I think if it was anything as big as a kudu, they might have still been near a we would have maybe seen them yesterday at a carcass. So I suppose there's the remote possibility that they could have had an impala in between, but nobody seems to have found them on a carcass or a kill since the baby hippo, so, or that young hippo. I'm not even sure how old the hippo was. I didn't even see any photos of it yet. Was it sort of a very young hippo? I mean, if they fed on it for 3 days, it must have been fairly big.
Here to the front of the car. Yeah.
Okay, so that's like buffalo size hippo.
Not as big. It was a young adult, we'll say.
Okay. Interesting. Sometimes, Renee, we don't know what they feed on. Sometimes we don't see them for days or even sometimes weeks on end, and there's no way of knowing what they've had until maybe one day we're walking through the bush looking for tracks and we find a carcass that we didn't know about, or we'd be following a leopard and we going off-road cross country, we might find something that we didn't know about. But it's hard to keep track of them 24 hours a day. Casey in Arkansas. Morning, Casey. Are all these lionesses related, and if they are, would it not create inbreeding issues, genetic issues? I think to answer that part of it, Casey, since different males will mate with the females, I don't think the genetic problem crossbreeding is an issue as much as it is if a male was to mate with his daughters, for example, if he was to hold territory for long enough that his daughters mature. But being related females, yes, they most likely are related females, if anything distantly related, in that their mothers might have been sisters, but somewhere along the line the lionesses within a pride would share probably mitochondrial DNA in terms of lineage from the same mother somewhere along the line. Sisters would have daughters, and then those daughters would have daughters, and the core of the pride will always be the female lineage of the pride, and it's the males that constantly take over the pride that bring in the new gene pool. But ultimately, we always think of the big male being the big boss, but really the lionesses are the ones that hold the territory. The lionesses are the ones that will stay in the area. Males get moved around a lot, they get ousted. And the tenureship of a territory isn't very long for males, and that in itself prevents inbreeding to some extent, in that they can get pushed out by incoming males before they are even able to breed with their own daughters. Of course, nothing is a set rule, and you will find in different areas different things, different dynamics taking place based on the ratio of males to females, and especially here in the Sabi Sand, where we're constantly having coalitions of males coming in and challenging for territory, that only coalitions are able to do so now. You wouldn't find a single male coming in and being able to push out a coalition. The numbers just aren't right for that. Got no view. I think we'll do a couple more line questions. I think then we need to go for a drive and see what else we can find, and maybe somewhere towards the end of the drive come back to them. Question from Virginia Beach. Hello, Teresa. And Teresa's asking what the future holds for this young male, not having any brothers, not being part of a coalition. Pretty much on the back of what I was just saying about a male, single male, not really having much of a chance with a coalition. But coalitions don't necessarily mean brothers, and it is quite possible that unrelated males can meet up to form a coalition. We saw it a few years ago in Thorny Bush, and it is known to happen that males do meet up. You might find they'll have a bit of a scrap at first, but somehow once they've sorted out their differences, it's possible for them to band together. But yes, he is a young male lion that has found himself in the middle of several coalitions of males. We've got the Birmingham boys, we've got the Salati boys, we've got the Matimbas, the Machingi lions. I suppose anywhere around this young male, he's going to run into a coalition of males, and that will invariably push him way out of his parent or his natal territory. He might even end up going into Kruger and being nomadic for a couple of years before he can settle down, and in that process probably picking up another male or two, or even getting a little bit of fight experience, finding himself on the edges of prime hunting ground. Obviously the biggest males and the best coalitions can hold some of the best territories with best access to prey and to water, and out on the fringes is where you find ousted males and a young male who can't find his own way because he can't fight against 2s and 3s. Morning, Shanae in New Zealand. Hi, Shanae, nice to hear from you. And based on what I was saying, is it possible that then this young male could join up with eventually and form a coalition with the 2 young Styx males? And I think it's a very, very, very strong possibility, particularly because the Matimbas seem to be dominant over, well, they seem to hold sway over this pride as well as the Styx. The Matimbas do go south to the Styx pride, so that could possibly be considered an extended pride in some respects. So I think that would be a very good possibility, Shanae. And then another question about who are the coalitions in the area. As I mentioned, we've got the Matimbas from Buffelshoek and Djuma. That's their area, going down into Little Gowrie just south of us. And a little bit to the east in Torchwood. Not very far west, because west of us we have the Machingi lions going all the way to the western part of the Sabi Sand, as well as the Birmingham boys to the southwest of us, and the Salati males from up in Manyaleti that come down this way. Just trying to think who else is there. I'm sure I might have left 1 or 2 of the coalitions out. Sounds like Scott's down south. He's looking for tracks. Trying to see if those other two boys that we different cats, the other two boys, Nkuhuma and Quarantine, seeing if they might have crossed back onto our side of the world. So let's head over to Scott and catch up with him following leopard tracks. I'm going to leave these sleeping cats be. We're going to go and head off and see what else we can find this morning, and maybe make a big loop and come back to them a little bit later, just so that we can keep track of where they are, what they're doing, especially since it is a little bit overcast.
Welcome back, everyone. And I guess the lions were doing what lions do best, and that is sleeping. So, welcome back. You'll notice we're driving very, very slowly, and I'm dangling my head over to the side of the vehicle to check the road for any tracks. We did get a report of male leopard tracks heading north towards our Djuma property from our southern boundary. So possibly Nkuhuma or Quarantine, the leopards we were hoping to find this morning. Not that we fussy, but we just had a bit of intelligence and we knew where they were. So there have been some tracks found. I'm not sure exactly where. The radios are not working very well. So apologies for that, and I'm just going to have to concentrate and chat to the guys on the Game Drive channel, because searching alone out here and not working as a team is not the best option. Oh, sorry, could you go again with that? It is good prospects, and at least there are leopard tracks heading vaguely into the area where we are now. We are north of the position where the tracks are found, and this area is an area where both Nkuhuma and Quarantine have spent time in the past, so it wouldn't be a surprise to find them here.
Leaving north of the on Rebecca's Road.
Georgie in Australia. Georgie's raised an interesting topic here. She's interested to know whether the decrease in leopard sightings that we've experienced, could it be related to the fact that there have been lions on the property kind of for the last week? And I don't think that is the case, Georgie. I think it's more through default than anything else. Lion and leopard are used to coexisting with one another. Obviously the leopard needs to avoid the lion at all costs, but they do know that they can escape them. They do know that they can climb up trees. Excuse me. Therefore I don't think it's the fact that the lions have been here that the leopards have moved off. It's simply through default that they are moving. The two young males are beginning to slowly expand their horizons. It's not their territory, but it's a natural occurrence for them to slowly start moving out of their mother's territory, where they are tolerated initially. They booted out of her presence, but they're allowed within her territory, and then slowly they expand and expand, because eventually their father's going to chase them off, or their will to find their own territory will cause them to move off. So we're finding them further and further afield, which means we've got less leopards to basically find on our property. We've been really privileged over the last few months having the 2 young boys. They're basically 2 extra leopards that shouldn't really be here, but they are. It's a window period where they're allowed in their mother's territory while they're slowly growing up. Now they're going to move out, and it's just going to be the mother, hopefully a future generation of cubs, and a dominant male, their father. But we have been riding this little window period, and we have seen them more than any other leopards since we've been filming for the last 6 months. It would be really interesting to know how much time we've spent with them relative to other leopards, but I can assure you that quarantine and Nkuhuma have been our saving grace with leopards, and now that they're further away makes it difficult for us. We did find Mvula, their father, on Tuesday or Wednesday in the afternoon, so we did have 1 sighting so far this week, but that is uncommon. It's a low leopard count considering how lucky we have been over the past, but I don't think it's because of the lion. And I hope that answers your question, Georgie. I was just listening for a second there. I thought I heard something, but it was my imagination. Just want to get to the bottom of where these tracks were found, and then we can make a calculated decision as to where to go. Aubrey. Aubrey, any updates from Texan? I'd just like to know where these tracks actually were. Go ahead, Andrew.
To the Djuma driveway, cutting it close.
Can you go again with that, please?
The Texan mission was on Garryman, Chito new driveway, but moving north into Toy.
Okay, copy. Thank you, sir. Well, there's good news and bad news with that radio call. The good news is we now know what's going on. The bad news is even though that leopard was heading north, which would have been good, it's quite a lot further east of where I was hoping it was, and it hasn't crossed north into our property, it's crossed north into the neighboring property. That's not to say it couldn't come here, but it means that we are not actively going to be able to go to those tracks and follow up. So what my plan is now to continue from the south along our eastern boundary. We're not quite on the boundary here, but we are very close to the boundary, and we'll continue up on a road that runs parallel to our eastern boundary all the way up to Buffelshoek Dam and see if there's no action up in that direction. Now, I'm thinking, okay, there's something going on in this tree ahead of us here. There's a lot of birds flittering about in there and alarm calling. I'm just going to move us further forward. Can you see them there, Viam? It could be a snake, it could be a mongoose, but there's a lot of birds that are not happy with something in this bush. What could it be? You'll hear all the alarm calls now and see all the birds flittering about. It's not easy, the light is not perfect here. So I'm just going to stop for a second and use my binoculars to scan into this bush. It's so difficult to see snakes in trees, and thankfully we've got VM with us. He somehow miraculously managed to find a boomslang yesterday in an acacia tree, and we would be seriously lucky if we could find another snake. Oh, there's some pretty birds jumping around in this tree. That one there is a palace. It's a tricky thing with birds. A lot of them are so small that it's difficult to appreciate their beauty, because you can hardly see the things unless we're very close to them. But what I'm going to do is show you in the book. There's a tiny little bird that you can see flittering around in the top left of the tree as VM zooms out. And because you're not going to be able to get close enough to it, I'd like to show it to you in the book. It's called a yellow-breasted apalus. And look at those colors. Beautiful green on the back, bright yellow breast, and a very bright red eye. So that was one of the birds that were frustrated with who knows what's in this bush. We are going to get a little bit closer and see if we can work out what exactly it was that they were stressing about. Please be a snake, and please can we see it? The tricky thing is, it could be a snake on the ground, like a puff adder. It could be an arboreal snake that's in the tree. It could be a snake called a vine snake, which, as its name suggests, looks exactly like a vine or a twig. A twig snake's another name for them. I mean, their camouflage is absolutely incredible, and they imitate looking like a branch. So, VM's just taking you on a journey through this tree. The bird you can hear calling is a pearl-spotted owlet. It's a tiny little owl, and what we're going to do is go and have a look for it after we've fine-combed this tree for any sign of a predator. What I can assure you is that all those birds weren't mistaken. There would have been something in here, either a snake or a mongoose. But I cannot seem to find it, and VM, no luck with you there. So we'll write it off, but at least we tried, and at least we did examine the potential chance of finding a predator. Where is this little pearl-spotted owlet? What I'm going to be looking for now is just the shape, a little blob, a little owl-like blob. And I'm going to be looking for that silhouette in the trees where I thought I heard it calling from, which is somewhere up to our right here. They're very small. They're about this big, these little owls. So factor that into the equation when scanning and helping us to try and find it. They're really, really pretty little birds. Finding them can be a little bit tricky.